The information provided is not a substitute for legal and other professional advice where the facts and circumstances warrant. People should always consult their own legal or other professional advisors and discuss the facts and circumstances that apply to their specific circumstances. The information shared on Ask the Landlord is for educational purposes only.
My question today, Albert, this is a good one. How do I find a no-fee apartment? And I'm talking a broker's fee.
I got you. That's a good question. So you're saying you want to make sure you're, I guess, paying the least to find an apartment. What you're speaking of is having when there's brokers that represent apartments, sometimes the tenants have to pay, which I've done, before myself, but I understand the question. Is that right? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. The question comes from, I found the apartment myself. I did all the work. Why should I pay a broker fee?
Right. Okay, cool. It depends on the market, supply and demand, the time of year, the landlord, the building. Okay. So first, let's talk about supply and demand. Recently, we're experiencing a lack of supply of rentals, let's say in New York City. So a lot of brokers and landlords decided to, say, look, I don't have a lot of apartments available. And if someone like a broker wants to show them to tenants, the brokers would have to get paid by the tenants. Right. And you're asking, like, how do I avoid that? So obviously, sometimes that exists in markets, but even in the hottest market, what I found was sometimes the landlords will pay the broker fee. Right. Most of the time, in fact, it depends on where you are, but most of the time, what I found was the landlords pay the fee. So when you go on your search on the internet, Street Easy or whatever these days, you can type in no fee apartments, and even though there is a fee being paid to the broker, and there very often is a broker, that you're not paying the fee as a tenant.
Why would a landlord pay a fee for you?
The landlord needs to get their apartment rented, and they need to show the apartment and handle the whole application process, and brokers, and market the apartment, right? So brokers usually do that and specialize in just that. So unless a landlord is set up for that, doing it themselves, which, that is a way to talk about, which we'll get there in a second, is a landlord would give their listings to brokers to list and pay the brokers a fee to get them good renters. Now, in very high demand markets and times, sometimes the brokers can charge a fee to the tenants, and the landlord can want to look for the broker, pay the broker, or one or both or neither. Okay. Now, one good tip so first of all, whenever you're looking for an apartment and you want to pay the least for it or avoid paying a broker fee, right, it's the best thing to do what's called run an auction. Do you know what an auction is, Melissa?
I know what like a cattle auction is. I don't know.
Right. So
real
what's
estate.
A cattle auction?
$1, $1, $5, $5.
Right. So an auction is where you have a bunch of people bidding on one thing.
Correct.
Right? Okay. So what if I said to you then, well, when I say to you, run an auction as a tenant looking for a place, well, you say, look, you're looking for a place. So if you produce a lot of different options for yourself, you're running an auction for yourself to find the best place to live. So it's not one place, you'll have 10 places. And then Out of those 10, you'll have the best deal. I know someone recently that looked for a place to live over a couple months, saw like over 80 apartments.
Wow.
So they ran an auction that was effective and got a great deal that they didn't think they were going to get, because even though the market was overheated, they had all the market options in front of them and they were able to pick the best one for whatever, it's not always priced as other things available, right? Yes, go ahead.
Another term. What does it mean when a market is overheated?
So there are some times, which happened recently in New York City, and from what I hear across the country, was that there was a lot of people that after the pandemic resolved, or as it was, people wanted to sort of get back to normal, and they went back to apartments and in cities, and there was just not enough housing produced, so there was just still high demand for rentals, and that's what I meant about overheated. It's like prices went up, people sort of got back out to where they wanted to get to, and it was like a lot of demand for not so many places to live, and then people found themselves competing with a lot of other people for limited rentals. But even in that market, even in that market, where it's a seller's market or a landlord's market, you want to say, you could still it's always there's a thing called a dominant strategy. Have you ever heard of that?
No, do tell.
Okay. A dominant strategy, it's like a thing in game theory where you make a move that's the best move to make regardless of whatever anyone else does. It's the right move to make, the best move to make always.
Okay.
Like when you're playing tic-tac-toe.
Okay.
You know what the best move to make in tic-tac-toe if you go first?
I'm going to go with corner top right.
X middle.
X middle?
Yes.
Why not O?
O middle.
Okay.
Whatever. If you're O, whoever's first goes first.
Okay.
So the O in the middle or the X in the middle moving first is the one that limits the other player's chances of winning the most. So that's the best move to make regardless of what the other player does. So now when you think about that, when you say, well, if I'm looking for an apartment and I want to get the best deal for myself, pay the least fees, get the best place with the best terms and the best location, you say, okay, that's what everybody wants. And the way to do that is to produce an auction, which means get yourself a lot of options, and so that you can make many offers on different places. And then, you're going to go with the one that works the best for you. And it's not always about the price. It could be the rental, the what the broker charges, the other features of the neighborhood, the building, etc. So a dominant strategy, which is the best move to make, is to run an auction for yourself where you're seeing a lot of places and picking the best one or bidding on several and making the best deal for yourself. Now, even when it's a landlord's market, in a landlord's market, all that does is translate to, oh, I got to see more apartments, right? Because it's harder to find the one. So you have to see more. In a renter's market, there's a lot of apartments to choose from. But you still run an auction because you'll just go make lower offers across the board.
So running an auction for me would be making a spreadsheet, right?
Yeah, but you have to, obviously, you have to go to the places
right
and see a lot. And
right.
then you'll note them on your spreadsheet and you'll say, look, I've seen these 20 places and this is the feel for where I want to live. This is why I would do this one. This is why I wouldn't do this one. I'm going to make this offer. This is what this is worth to me. This is what this one's worth to me. And then I think we said in a earlier podcast about packaging yourself. So the cool part is that in that episode we talked about, making sure that you're a good candidate, right, for this, right? So one way to make sure you're getting a good deal is to make sure you have all of your all the things needed that the agent would require, the landlord would require, and then you could actually negotiate with them and say, listen, I've done a lot of work for you. I'm pretty easy. I know exactly what you need from me. even if you're paying a fee, you could say, I should pay less of a fee because, I did all the work. I know what I'm doing, you know. So all you have to do is nothing, so you can negotiate those fees too
with the broker,
with the broker
with the real
if there is
estate.
one. If there is one, it depends on
Oh,
you liking the apartment or not.
yeah, that's a good point. I
Uh,
never would have thought to negotiate that fee.
you can now.
Hmm.
Now, another idea. Okay, so that was a lot. Did you get all
Yeah,
that? Do you have any questions on that?
no, absolutely. What else?
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
another idea is to walk the neighborhood or the area that you want to rent in and knock on the door of the building and or find the management company or landlord and approach them directly and say, hey, you know, I'm interested in this building. Do you have any availabilities? Or anyone who's in the building, you can say, hey, can you put me in touch with the landlord? And the landlord might do a deal with you directly, right? And very often, their landlords own more than one property, or there's a management company that's managing the building, and you can save on the fee by going to them directly.
Hmm. Does
Does
that
that
does that ruin a bridge between the landlord and that broker though?
what broker? Like
If you're the broker who's representing the unit, if they have exclusive listings in terms of
some
rentals?
sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Okay,
But with
so it
rentals,
depends.
yeah, with rentals,
Hmm.
in a lot of cases they don't. In some cases they do. If they have an exclusive, it's usually that they're paying the broker.
Okay, so they're getting paid regardless.
Yeah, so the broker is going to get paid, and it's an important question to ask when you're looking at apartments because you have to pay. If you have to pay the broker first month's rent, right? Security deposit, if you're paying security deposit and not using one of those services that we talked about in other episodes where you have like a insurance policy, and paying the broker, so you're going to have to pay 3 months, essentially 3 months rent up front. So I know that's important to consider. And you can actually online today, you could filter by no fee searches. You can look up who's managing a building, see if they approach them directly. Say, hey, I'm looking for something where I don't have to uh, pay for a broker. And what you'll find is you can find stuff. You just have to look a lot. So I just told you, right, that you should look at a lot of apartments.
Hmm.
Now, the cool thing is that today you can do that online, right? You can go searching, and you could do a lot of filtering and all that stuff. Fine. But you and I know you have a day job, and you're like, well, that takes time for you. And you're like, if I can hire someone that's going to manage the whole process for me and run the auction and knows what I like and can see stuff and do all that and save me tons of time, especially let's say if you're away or whatever, for a period of time, then the brokers can be very valuable to do that for you.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Um, and that's and then that speaks to brokers. It's like that's what people need brokers for, right?
Right.
To help them do things that they couldn't do on their own, to educate them about things they didn't know about, to help them, get them nicer places than they could get on their own, right? So that's why brokers are coming under pressure as the information improves, out there, and it's easier for people just to transact directly. So the more complicated or the more I think there is a place for good brokers out there. And when you're looking as a tenant to know what your purposes are and how much time you have to do this and to get good help, it's always good to have good help. So but very often you could actually find someone that will get paid by the landlord. So you don't have to pay. So good question. And something to think about when you're looking for an apartment, how you do that. So I say management companies is a good way to do that. Um, Going door to door in areas that you like to go. And a lot of brokers today get paid by the landlords. So doing that too, and negotiate. No reason not to.
All right. You summed it up brilliantly. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you answering that question. You gave a lot of options, and that's great. Thank you so much.